You know, when we're looking at Abraham, I find that very interesting. When we look at Isaac, I do not find that very interesting. And when we look at Jacob, I find that extremely interesting. And I've never really found a good way to apply Isaac to our lives. And it's just because there's not a whole lot written about him. So I'm kind of waiting, like last week's Torah portion, which I enjoyed. I'm kind of waiting until we get to Jacob. Because Jacob, I'll tell you why I like Jacob so much. Not because he's the father of the Jews. I like him so much because his life shows us how to change. And if we're not changing, then we're not doing anything. Really, we're not doing anything worth anything. And that includes raising children, and it includes everything. Everything we do for our life, and our job, in our home, in our life. It's all worthless if we're not changing. So Jacob, I like because he changed so much. He changed so radically. So much so that he became a different person. I mean, literally a different person. Like he was one guy, then he was a different guy. Different name, different everything. Abraham, not as much. Isaac, not as much. But Jacob is all about change. Well, it starts even from before his birth. This up and down and up and down and up and down and up and down that never stops. So if you're tired of the up and down, don't be. I mean, you just got to stop being tired of it because that is life. That is the nature of life. That is what life is all about. Life is all about getting bigger and then getting smaller over and over and over and over again. And it never stops. Well, Jacob, this started before he was even born. So that's what we're going to be looking at is the rise and fall, the up and down, back and forth of whole kingdoms. And, you know, the guys are in the Bible because it's God's word. And the select portions of their life that are in the Bible are there because they're the pictures to teach us from. They did all kinds of stuff, but all kinds of stuff is not in the Bible. And it's not there, not just to make the size more manageable of the, you know, we'd be lugging around a Bible this big if it had everybody's life, but that's not why it's not in the Bible. It's not in the Bible because it's not a picture to teach us. The stuff that's in the Bible is a picture to teach us. That's why it's there. And it started even before he was born. So we're going to go to the Torah portion, Tol'dot. And remember back when we were in Genesis and Bereshit, I told you that the word Tol'dot, generations, is faulty ever since Genesis, I think it was chapter 3, when it says these are the generations of the heaven and the earth, and it's written fully with two vavs, and it never shows up again with two vavs until the book of Ruth, last chapter, where David is finally talked about coming. So this is the seed of the Messiah. Well, it's still defective, the word Tol'dot. It's still defective here. And this is generations, Bereshit 25. These are the generations, the Tol'dot of Isaac, Abraham's son. Abraham fathered Yitzhak, and Yitzhak was 40 years old when he took Rivkah. That's there as a picture. Or else it wouldn't have said he's 40 years old. It's there as a picture. The daughter of Betuel, the Arami of Padan Aram, his name is there as a picture. So we're going to look at that. Isaac prayed to the Lord straight before his wife because she was barren. And the Lord answered him, and his wife Rivkah conceived. And her name, Rivkah, is also a picture. But the children struggled together within there. Now, the way it says it, struggled together within there, it uses the word to run. And the stories and the Midrash say that, you know, the only righteous guy on the planet after the flood was Shem. And Shem set up an academy at Shechem, right in the middle of Israel. And Abraham learned from him. Abraham taught Isaac. And now Rivkah, she's pregnant with babies. And when she's walking by Shem's house, Shem's tent, The baby starts running. One of them starts running toward, like, I want that. And it's God. It's like righteousness. It's Shem was teaching about God. And so one of the babies is like, oh, yeah, I want that. And then when she'd walk by the idol's house, which there were millions of them, the other baby would start running toward that. And so even before they're born, you got one of them is going to be an idolater, and one of them is going to be righteous. And so they're running inside her body. That's the word that's used in Hebrew. So he prays, and she gets pregnant. The children are running together inside her, and she said, if it is so, why am I thus? So she went to inquire of the Lord. Now, when it says she went to inquire of the Lord, that means that she went to the tent of Shem. And she went to inquire of God at the tent of Shem. Like, what is going on with me? And she's prophesied to. And that prophecy is what we're going to look at. So she went to inquire of the Lord. The Lord said to her through Shem, is what the rabbis say, 2 nations, this is the word goyim, 2 goyim are in your womb. And 2 kingdoms, leumim, will be separated from your body. And 1 kingdom to the other kingdom will be stronger. Now, I have worked with the Hebrew and got it as absolutely as accurate as I can get it for you. This is what it says in Hebrew, as close as I can get it. 1 kingdom to other kingdom will be stronger, and older will serve the younger. When her days to deliver were at an end, behold, there were twins in her womb. Now the first came out red all over like a hairy garment. This gave him both of his names. He's red, so he was named Edom. And he's hairy like a man, like he's already a man. And so they named him, he's already made. He's already developed. He's full. He's complete. So they named him Esav, which comes from the verb to make or to do or to create. So he's already made. He's already done cooking. So that's where he got both of his names. But look what it says. Now the first came out red all over like a hairy garment, and who named him Esav? It's right there. Who named him Esav? It's right there. No, not he. Who named him Esav? Nope. What does it say? It's right there. I've even emboldened it for you. What does it say, guys? They. More than one person named him Esav. It's like a whole bunch of people. He is complete. He's perfect. He's made. He's done. He's a made man. And he's an infant. He's a newborn. They named him Esav, made whole, complete with hair. Afterward, his brother came out with his hand grasping Esav's heel. So, who named Yaakov? What does it say? Come on. What does it say, everybody? He. They named Esav, but one person named Yaakov. And what the rabbis say is, who do you think that he is? God. That God named him Yaakov. So he named him Yaakov, heel catcher, to come from behind. And Isaac was 60 years old. That's a picture too. He got married when he was 40, and he had the babies born. The birth pangs came when he was 60. That's a picture. When Isaac was 60, when she gave birth to them. All right. So this is all a picture of the bride of the Messiah. That's what this whole thing is about. Isaac was 40 years old when he took Rivkah, the daughter of Bethuel, the Arami of Padan Aram. So this is, Isaac is a picture of the Messiah. He was a picture of the Messiah at the Akedah, when Abraham bound him to the altar and was going to kill his son. At that point, John 8:56 and 58 say, Abraham saw my day and rejoiced to see it. That's what Yeshua said, John 8:58. So, and then Yeshua says, before Abraham was, I am. Well, Abraham saw that Isaac was a picture of Messiah. And so in our picture here, this little thing that's being acted out, Isaac is the Messiah. He takes a bride. You're going to have to work with your brain to change the phrase bride of Christ. I mean, Christ means Messiah. So that's a good thing to do, is change it that much if you can. Bride of Messiah. Don't ever say bride of Christ again. Say bride of Messiah, because Christ means Messiah. If you can think like that, if you can think like bride of Messiah, bride of Messiah, bride of Messiah, it might, maybe, will start changing your mind to think Jewishly about this. Because for 2,000 years, it's been said you have the Jews, and then you have the bride of Christ. And they're completely separate. And they're not. They're absolutely not. So, this is a picture of God, of Isaac, the bride, the Messiah, taking his bride. John 3:29 says, "He who has the bride is the groom. But the friend of the groom," there's two friends, there's the friend of the bridegroom and the friend of the bride. One is Elijah and one is Moses. So this is John, he's Elijah. Yeshua said that twice, that he is Elijah. And he is the friend of the groom. And so John, Elijah, says, the friend of the groom who stands and hears him. Well, what does he hear? He hears at the marriage chamber, right after, as soon as they're married under the chuppah. Remember how we had the wedding and then they went off to the yechud, the room, and anciently they would have sex there, and they would announce, "Okay, we did it." And that's what John or Elijah would hear. That's what the friend of the bridegroom standing at the door would hear. "We did it. We have conceived. We've completed the act of acquisition of taking the bride. It's done." Sounds crazy, but that's what they would do. And he's talking about that here. So he says, "But the friend of the groom who stands and hears him rejoices greatly because of the groom's voice. So this joy of mine has been made full." So obviously the Messiah came and he took a bride. But who is that bride? 2 Corinthians 11. Shaul says, "I'm jealous for you with a godly jealousy because I betrothed you to one husband." Now he's talking to Corinthian Jews and Gentiles who were believers, and he betrothed them to the Messiah. So believers in Yeshua are part of the bride of Messiah. Not the whole bride, part of the bride. Only part. "I betroth you to one husband to present you as a pure virgin to Messiah." So the Jewish people were God's bride for 2,000 years before this. He took Israel and made a covenant with us at Mount Sinai. That's the ketubah, the marriage contract. And then we were married to God. That was our marriage. That's the bride of Messiah. It's Israel. But now there are Jews and Gentiles being brought into that through Yeshua. It's the same group. It's just more people, different people. But the weird thing is that they are, not all of them, but some of them are Gentiles. And this is what was so weird. Bringing Gentiles into the bride of God. And that's why Shaul is saying, "I'm jealous for you with a godly jealousy. I betroth you to one husband to present you as a pure virgin to Messiah." And then in Revelation 19, at the coming of Yeshua, after the birth pangs, at the end of the birth pangs, when Yeshua comes with all the host of heaven to judge everything and everybody, right before that it says, "Rejoice and be glad and give glory to him, because the marriage of the Lamb has come." The marriage of the Lamb has come. There's betrothal, and then there's the marriage itself. So the marriage of the Lamb has come, and his bride has prepared herself. Blessed are those who are invited to the wedding feast of the Lamb. And I saw heaven open, and behold, a white horse, and he was sat on. Then the Messiah comes, and with all the host, and judges everybody. So this is at the end of the birth pangs. So we have betrothal at Mount Sinai, going all the way to the end of the birth pangs. Yes. Now we are going to go for the marriage in the resurrection. This is at the end of the 7 days of the marriage feast. But that doesn't mean the feast is over. You just keep partying. So the bride of Messiah is a subgroup of the bride of God. The bride of Messiah is just the same as the bride of God, which is Israel, only it's a little different because it's through Yeshua. But it's still the same group. It's a subgroup of the same group. So believers are a subgroup of Judaism. That's how that works. Now Isaac, how old was he when he took Rivkah to be his bride? 40. So that's a picture of the year 4000. And how old was he when the babies were born? 60. So that's a picture of the year 6000, 2,000 years in between. 4,000 when Yeshua died, and the bride started being gathered to the bride of Messiah. And 2 days goes by, and then the year 6000 comes, and then the day of the Lord. So that's why he took Rivkah at 40, and it was born, the baby's born at 60. It's a picture of this. From Messiah to Messiah. From first coming of Messiah to second coming of Messiah. So here's the bride of Messiah. In order to understand the bride of Messiah, you have to look at Rivkah. Now her name means a rope with a noose. Isn't that beautiful? Lovely. But it's more than that. It means like to capture men with their eyes because you're so beautiful. To capture men because the woman is so gorgeous that she just ropes them and pulls them in. But it's also binding the woman to the man, the husband to the wife. It binds them together. Rivkah, the name Rivkah. So it means binding, like a noose. And in Song of Solomon 4:9, God says this about Israel. He says, "You have hollowed my heart." That's what it says in Hebrew. You've hollowed out my heart. Men, you felt this when you've lusted. Like you see a woman that is so gorgeous that you can't breathe. That's what it's talking about. In Hebrew, I can't remember what the word is, but it's to hollow out the heart. To just gut you. You've gutted me, my sister, my bride. You've gutted me with a single of your eyes. With one of your eyes, one of your looks. With a single strand of your necklace. You've gutted me. That's what God says to Israel. Because Israel is so devoted to her, to doing the prayers, to doing Judaism. No matter what happens in our life, we're devoted, and that turns him on. Just turns him on to Israel. Now, she is the daughter of Betuel. I thought that this would be like Bat-El, house of God, but it's not. This could be one of two different things, and it's strange. Badly translated in Jusinius. He says it means man of God. It does not mean man of God. It means just the opposite. Betuel is a man, but it means virgin daughter of God. He is a virgin daughter of God. I put a question mark after that, because it's like, what? That doesn't really make a lot of sense. So I started looking into the word Betuel, and I found something else. And by the way, Bat means daughter, and Betula means virgin daughter, virgin. So no matter how you look at this, it means a girl, a woman, not a man of God. There's just no way to make this into man of God. So it might be virgin daughter of God, but also it could be marked or delineated by God. Because But two, see the tav and the vav? Two? Well, that's just like tav. So, tav, which is tet vav, just like this, tet vav. Tav means a mark or a brand. And tava, which is its root, means to mark or to delineate, like to go, like branding cattle. That's mine. And put the brand on it. Say, that's mine. Well, that's what tav means, a mark. No, tavniyot is spelled with a bet. So tava means to mark or delineate, and then tava, written exactly the same way, also means to abide or dwell with, to mark something off as yours, or to live with it. Now that makes more sense to me than virgin daughter of God. Like marked out, delineated, said, that's going in my house by God. That makes sense to me. That's the bride of Messiah. Everybody that God looks at, and for whatever reason he chose us, he says, I'm marking you out, I'm delineating you, I'm branding you for no reason of anything you did, no reason of anything we did. He chose us and he marked us out for him to dwell with us. That makes more sense to me. I believe that's what Betuel means. Now, I might be wrong. You could prove me wrong. But right now, that's where I'm thinking. That's what I'm thinking. Now, Rivka, the daughter of Betuel, they were from Aram. Aram means a high place, a high region, to be exalted. And remember, we're looking at the bride of Messiah. The bride of Messiah. And they were from the place called Padan Aram. Now, Padan means to cut up or plow or a field, or it could also mean a yoke of oxen, because they're the ones that chop up the field. So it's a binder, a noose, a rope that brings together, that's Rivka, the daughter of delineated, marked out by God from a high place, or bring him to a high place. That's her home, the high place. High place in the area that is a pair of oxen or cut up or plowed, divided, separated. This is sort of, you can believe this or not, but this is sort of the same word as kadosh. What does kadosh mean? We translate it holy, but it doesn't mean holy. What does it mean? Set apart, separated. Well, that is one of the main meanings of the word padan. Separated, not separated like a field by itself, but the field itself is chopped up and separated. And so it's kind of like the same word as holy. So this is how I read this. You can disagree, but this is how I read it. A girl who's going to bind with me, who's going to just get me like a noose and pull me in and, get wrapped up together with me in a rope. I want that. It's going to be mine. And she's delineated and marked out for my house. Not because of anything she did. I'm choosing to delineate and mark her for my house. And I'm going to take her to my house, the high region, because she's separated, she's delineated, she's chopped into pieces by me to set her apart from me. Now that's how I read this, God thinking this about Israel. And then he sends Yeshua, and for some unknown reason, he starts bringing Gentiles into that. That's the bride of Messiah. And it started with Israel. Now, there's two kingdoms in Rivka. The two kingdoms are Edom and Jacob. And they're inside of her. She is who? The bride of Messiah. And inside, this is what I'm saying. I'm saying that inside every believer is Edom and Israel. Inside every believer is Edom and Israel. So, what the prophecy is, the Lord said to her, 2 nations, 2 goyim, are in your womb, and 2 kingdoms, le'umim, will be separated from your body. So these goyim are le'umim, kingdoms. The 2 nations, calls them goyim. Now this is strange. It's not written as goyim in the Torah scrolls. It's not Gimel, Vav, Yod, Mem. That's not how it's written in Torah scrolls. That's not even how it's read in Torah scrolls. It's written as Gimel, Vav, Vav, Mem, Giyim. But it's not even pronounced Giyim. So this is really confusing. When they read it in the Torah, there's no way to know how to do this properly unless you're taught. Because it's not written properly and it's not said properly. It's pronounced like Ge'im. Say Ge'im. Ge'im. Which means exalted persons. So the way it's meant is there are 2 goyim, Gentiles, nations, in your womb. But the way it's read is there's 2 exalted persons in your womb. And this is really, really important. And this is what I'm going to teach on. So, where does this come from? It comes from the word ga'ah. Like when we're dealing with our midot, our attributes, what's the worst attribute we have? Pride. Ge'avah. That's what this word is. That's right, pride. Ge'avah. Ga'ah comes from ga'ah, which means exalted, to lift oneself up, pride or arrogance. Also to be lifted up by somebody else. Magnificence, majesty, splendor. So it could be really, really good or really, really bad. If somebody lifts you up, awesome. If you lift yourself up, no good ever. 100% of the time, that's bad. I'm going to say that again. If somebody lifts you up, somebody else lifts you up, fabulous. 100% of the time, that's a good thing. Usually, well, I shouldn't say 100% of the time, because if you're being a jerk and somebody lifts you up, that's not good. But, for the most part, when others lift you up, that's a good thing. But when we lift ourselves up, that is never, ever, ever a good thing. So it could be one or the other, ga'ah. Which is very weird, because look at this other word, gai, which sounds the same, looks almost the same, means exactly the opposite, a valley, a low place. So ga'ah means lifted up, gai or gay means a valley. Isn't that strange? That they look so similar and they are direct opposites. So the fact that it's not pronounced correctly and it's not written correctly is incredibly important. That God gave the Jewish people to write it like this. Gimel, Vav, Vav, Mem. It's very, very important. And it sets us up to look at a huge, huge thing. And that huge thing is this, that in every believer is Edom and Jacob, and they are both exalted persons. But who's doing the exalting? God or somebody else? Or themselves? So, then after that it says there's 2 kingdoms, le'umim. There's 2 kingdoms inside of you. Now, here's what it says in the Talmud. It says, and let the kingdoms, le'umim, be assembled. That's from Isaiah 43. And the term, it says in the Talmud, and the term le'om means nothing other than a kingdom. As it is stated, and the one kingdom, ule'om, shall be stronger than the other kingdom, mile'om, from our passage we're looking at today in Genesis. So what it's saying is, it's not just a little dude and a little dude inside that womb. It is a whole kingdom going up. And the other one then goes up. And then the other one goes up. Then the other one goes up. And it's a up and down and up and down and up and down, depending on who's being exalted at the time. And that is the whole point of what both Rashi and all the rabbis say about this. That's us. Sometimes, this is the whole point of the teaching, sometimes we act like Jacob. And we do Jewish stuff, and we act like a Jew, whether we're Jewish or Gentile. And sometimes we act like Esav, like we're just fine. Esav, complete, made whole. I already got all my hair. I'm done. I'm fine. I don't need you, and I don't need anybody else. And I certainly don't need God. I'm fine. And that is the worst possible thing that we can do. It is the element, the essence of ge'ava, of pride. And there's two of these kingdoms inside every believer. So here's what it says here's what Rashi says. He quotes the Talmud, and here's what he said. Will become mightier than the other kingdom. They will not be equal in greatness. When one rises, the other will fall. When Judaism rises, Edom falls. When Edom rises, Judaism falls. So what do you think's going on right now? Okay, this is the time of the year when Edom has his say. Thanksgiving is the kickoff, and you know this as well as I do. Thanksgiving, all it is the kickoff for Christmas. That's all it is. That's all it is. I used to say this when I was younger. We go to the parades, a Thanksgiving parade. And every other float is about, Santa Claus and Christmas and this and that. And I'm like, I would turn to Eileen and the kids and I'd say, what? I thought this was about Thanksgiving. I'd never been to one of these things before. This is all Christmas. No, it's not. Everybody would tell me. Everybody in the family would say, no, it's not. Then we'd be at home watching TV and every commercial's about Christmas. And I'd say, why? It's only Thanksgiving. Why all this Christmas stuff? No, it's not. Yes, it is. And this is on purpose. Why? Because of the time of year we're in, which I'll get to in a bit. So he says, they will not be equal in greatness. When one rises, the other will fall. And so Scripture states in Ezekiel, I will become full from the destroyed city. I read this 4 times, and I was like, what? Rashi, what are you talking about? This makes no sense. What does that have to do with anything? With Edom and Jacob, rising and falling. I shall become full from the destroyed city. Tyre, now in Tyre, the way you say that, you know how to say it in Hebrew? Like Bein HaMetzarim, like birth pangs. Tsor. It's the same word as tsar, birth pangs. Tsor. So that's how I'm going to be saying it. Tsor will become full, in other words, gain power only from the destruction of Jerusalem. And if you don't think this applies to us, you are dead wrong. Say you're doing Jewish stuff, you're doing fine, you're cruising along, you're studying Judaism, you feel good, and immediately something rises up for you to do, or for somebody for you to be with, and they start chipping away. Why are you doing that? Oh, come on, come do this. Oh, come on, you take things too seriously. Relax, chill out, man. Chill out. You know, you don't need to be doing this. Just go somewhere else. Go with me. Let's go do something else. And immediately, that spirit of Edom, which doesn't need anybody, says, come on, come with me. And your Judaism just drops in the toilet, and it's gone. This happens constantly, but especially now. Especially now. So I'm still thinking to myself, what in the world does this verse, about Tsor, have to do with anything? So I started reading it. Oh my God, are they right? So I've got them all. Over the next three slides, you're going to see why this is so important. Ezekiel 26 is what he's quoting. It says, because Tsor has said in regard to Jerusalem, Now look at what we're looking at again. There's two kingdoms in your body. One kingdom to the other kingdom will be stronger. One gets strong, the other drops. Then that one gets strong, and the other drops. And it's a back and forth, like a teeter-totter. So here's why he quotes it. Ezekiel 26. Because Tzor has said in regard to Jerusalem, aha, the gateway of the peoples is broken. It has opened up to me. Now who's this talking? Tzor, Tyre. Tyre is up in Lebanon. Guess who destroyed Tyre? Babylon. But as we read this, it's going to sound like it's talking to Babylon. Who destroyed the temple? Who destroyed the temple the first time? Babylon. But this is making it sound like Tzor destroyed the temple, right? So this gets a little confusing unless you pay attention. Because Tzor has said in regard to Jerusalem, aha, the gateway of the peoples is broken, it's open up to me. I will be filled. I will be filled. Why? Because Jerusalem has been destroyed. When Judaism gets destroyed, gets knocked down, gets done away with, immediately, here at least, Tzor gets filled, gets big. God says, look, I'm against you, Tzor, and I will bring up many nations against you as the sea brings up its waves. Now, Tzor is a really weird place. It's not on land. It was an island built by people, and it was a mile off the land. So how did they get there? They would take little boats out every day, back and forth, boats to Tzor. And they built a huge castle on Tzor. Huge. I mean, just like enormous castle. Nobody could get to this place. Babylon did. Babylon brought a bunch of ships out there and just brought the place down. So guess what Tzor did? They rebuilt. They rebuilt the whole city after this. And then somebody else came along and just knocked it to the, like got rid of even the rubble on the island. They just brought it down to dust. Guess who it was? Who? Persians? No, that's a good guess though. Who? Rome? Before Rome. Alexander the Great. You know what he did? He built a causeway, a mile-long causeway from the shore all the way out to Tzor. Yeah, so that he could bring chariots out there. And they brought that thing down to dust. Well, this is the first time. This is before Babylon attacked it and destroyed it. So Tzor is a big thing right now in this passage. And God says, I'm against you, I hate you. Tzor, I will bring up many nations against you as the sea brings up its waves. They will destroy the walls of Tzor and tear down her towers. She will become a dry place for the spreading of nets in the midst of the sea. She will become plunder for the Gentiles. So I'm thinking, wow, man, that is a huge undertaking. So I kept reading. What is this about? Because Tzor wasn't even, Babylon destroyed Jerusalem, not Tzor. So why? Why is it bringing up Tzor? And why does God hate her so much? So I kept reading. So now, next chapter, Ezekiel 27. Moreover, the word of the Lord came to me, saying, and you, son of man, take up a song and mourning over Tzor. And again with the Tzor. He just keeps going on. Another chapter. And say to Tzor, who sits at the entrance to the sea, merchant of the peoples and many coastlands. And when I read that word coastlands, I knew what this was about. Anybody know? You know what coastlands is? What it is in the Bible? No? It's a picture of all Greek Gentiles. It's a picture of all of the Greek kingdom and all of the kingdom of Rome. So as soon as I read that, I'm like, oh, this is much, much, much bigger than I thought. So, Tzor is the one who feeds all the coastlands. Oh my God. Who feeds the entire Hellenistic culture? Hellenism came before Rome. Who created, who fed it, who fanned the flame of Alexander and Hellenism? The devil, Hasatan. So I'm thinking, the king of Tzion is Hasatan. So I kept reading. That's what I'm thinking. So I kept reading. Tzion, you have said, I am perfect in beauty. Who said that? I am perfect in beauty. Your borders are in the heart of the sea. The heart of the sea? The seas are Gentiles. Your builders have perfected your beauty. They've made all your planks of juniper trees from Senir, taken a cedar from Lebanon and made a mast. Oh, now it's saying it's a ship. It's a ship. There's a picture of a Greek ship. That's a good one too, by the way. Of oaks from Bashan, they have made your rudders. This is definitely a ship. With ivory inlaid your deck. Definitely a ship. Of boxwood from the coastlands. There it is again. From the coastlands of Cyprus. Your sail was colorful embroidered linen from Egypt. All the ships of the sea and their sailors were with you in order to deal with your merchandise, your stuff. So I'm like, okay, this has got to be Hasatan. And he is Tzion, and he is Babylon, and he's Edom. This is what I'm thinking. Then I go to Ezekiel 29. I just kept reading. The word of the Lord came to me saying, Son of man, say to the leader of Tzion, because your heart is haughty, lift it up. And you said, I am God. I sit in the seat of gods in the heart of the seas. Yet you're a mortal. Though you make your heart like the heart of God, behold, you're wiser than Daniel. By your wisdom and understanding, you've acquired riches, gold and silver for your treasuries. In great wisdom, by your trade, you've increased your riches. Therefore, behold, I'm going to bring strangers against you, the most ruthless of the Gentiles, and they will draw their swords against the beauty of your wisdom. Will you still say, I am a God, before the one who kills you? So I'm thinking, this is weird. He's wiser than Daniel? He says he's a God? This has got to be Hasatan. It's got to be. Again, the word of the Lord came to the king of Tzion. You had the seal up. Actually, what it says in Hebrew is, you sealed up the sum. That's what it says. You sealed up the sum, full of wisdom and perfect in beauty. You were in Eden. Well, this can't be the king of Tzion. You were in Eden, the garden of God. Every precious stone was your covering: carnelian, topaz, diamond, peridot, onyx, jasper, lapis lazuli, chrysoprase, which is turquoise, which is the stone for the tribe of Judah, by the way, and emerald. And the gold in your creation, your drums and your settings were in you on the day you were created. This is very definitely Hasatan, isn't it? Yeah. But it's the king of Tzion. Right. And he got full because Jerusalem was destroyed. This is in every believer. This is in every believer. Whoever you meet, you think they're so wonderful. You think they're so great. They've got two kingdoms inside of them just like we do. Judaism, Jacob, and Edom, whatever that is. Hasatan so far. The king of Tzion so far. On the day that you were created, they were prepared. You were the anointed cherub who covers. Hasatan was a cherub, a cherub. One of the four living creatures. By the way, I believe there was only him. There were not four living creatures. It was just him. Which is why God made more. Because it was just him. But then he put them facing each other. Remember on the ark? They're facing each other. He's got something to compare himself to. So God made more. Instead of just one. In the midst of the stones of... You walked in the midst of the stones of fire. The stones of fire are the fire angels. the seraphim, right. You were blameless in your ways from the day you were created until unrighteousness was found in you. By the abundance of your trade, okay, now he's going to start talking about money, 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 money. And I'm like, why? What is this about? By the abundance of your trade, Tsor, you were eternally filled with violence and you sinned, Hasatan. So I've cast you as profane from the mountain of God, and I've destroyed you, you covering keruv, from the midst of the stones of fire. Your heart was arrogant because of your beauty. You corrupted your wisdom by reason of your splendor. I threw you to the ground. I put you before kings so they can see you. By the multitude of your wrongdoings and the unrighteousness of your trade, money making, you profaned your sanctuaries. Therefore, I have brought fire from the midst of you, from inside of you. Came right out from him, from the midst of you, and it ate you up. And I've turned you to ashes on the earth. This is Hasatan. If he was turned to ashes on the earth, why is he still around? No, because he's not a human. He's a spirit. Tsor was a human. The leader of Tsor was a human. The king of Babylon was a human. They were pictures of Hasatan. But this literally happened, that fire came out from Hasatan, and the body of him just burned away, leaving just a spirit. That's why he has no body. I've turned you to ashes on the earth in the eyes of all who see you. All who know you among the peoples are appalled at you. You've become terrified, and you will cease to be forever. So here's what I say. The king of Tyre, Hasatan, goes up only because Israel or Judaism inside of us goes down. Do you hear me? Hasatan in you grows when you don't do Judaism. It's pretty simple. When you're doing Judaism, it's hard to walk into a whorehouse. I mean, you can't go into a whorehouse, well, I guess you could, with tzitzit on, and without getting asked a lot of questions. I mean, when you're doing Judaism, people just, they're not going to be so quick to Hellenize you. The reason people are so quick to Hellenize us is because we eat it. And we don't say anything. We go, oh, okay, it's not so bad. Okay, so let Hasatan get big. Because that's what it is. Now, the reason I'm saying this so loudly right now is because of the time we're in. And look at when this Torah portion shows up. Jacob against Esav shows up every year right at Kislev. We are at Rosh Chodesh Kislev. Did you see it last night? It was awesome. Yeah, it was beautiful. So the first 3 days of every month are Rosh Chodesh, the new moon festival. So we're right now in the middle of the Rosh Chodesh festival of Kislev. And every year, as right before Kislev or in Kislev, Jacob is born, and so is Esav. So, there's a ship. It's Hasatan. It's the king of Tsor. Remember, it was compared to a ship? And all the money that he got, all the gold and pearl and all those stones that were covering Hasatan, yeah? Okay, that's what's being quoted in Revelation chapter 18. I mean, almost word for word. I saw another angel coming down from heaven. He cried out with a mighty voice, "Fallen, fallen is Babylon." Not Tsor, Babylon. So now we have Tsor being Babylon. Yes? The king of Tsor is Babylon. And who is the king of Tsor? Hasatan. So Hasatan and Tsor and Babylon, they're basically all the same dude. And Edom. I saw another angel coming down from heaven. He cried out with a mighty voice, "Fallen, fallen is Bavel, Babylon the Great. She has become a dwelling place of demons and a prison of every unclean spirit. For all the nations have fallen because of the wine of the passion of her sexual immorality." Look where we are. We're at the very end of the birth pangs, right? Revelation 19 is when the Messiah shows up. At the end of the birth pangs. This is at the end of the birth pangs. And it says, the merchants of the earth have become rich from the excessive wealth of her luxury. And the kings of the earth who live luxuriously with her will weep and mourn over her when they see the smoke of her burning, standing at a distance because of the fear of her torment. Didn't it say that in Ezekiel 26, when all the merchants saw the ship being destroyed and they stood off at a distance? Remember, we read that? That it described them being the creators and the makers of this big ship. And we only read one little teeny tiny part of it. It goes on and on and on and on, describing exactly what's said here in Revelation 18. And they stand off at a distance because of the fear of her torment. And the merchants of the earth weep and mourn over her because nobody buys their cargo anymore. Now, put this into your life. Put this into your life. They're freaking out because she's being destroyed. Let's call it Hellenism. Hellenism is being destroyed at the end of the birth pangs. Yeah. And everybody who loved it is standing off at a distance going, oh my God, what about the stuff? Put that into your life. Huh? Yeah. All the traditions, all the money, all the stuff. No more Christmas. Right. Well, let's stick with Christmas because that's the time period we're in. So it is not a coincidence that Christmas came in Kislev. It is not a coincidence. It wasn't just some Christian came up with some idea and they applied, some druid god to a pig and then said, let's eat this on December 25th. That's not what it was. This is the plan of God. And it's created so that the Jewish people have this horrible, horrible stumbling block right now that you either get over or you don't get over. You hear what I'm saying? We either get over it or we don't get over it. We either defeat it or we don't defeat it. You with me? Okay. So that's what's going on here, at least in our life. So let's go back to the passage. So they see this burning, standing at a distance because of the fear of her torment, and the merchants of the earth weep and mourn because nobody buys the stuff anymore. Gold, silver, precious stones, pearls, fine linen, purple, silk, scarlet, citron wood. That's like etrog wood. Every article of ivory, every article made from very valuable wood, bronze, iron, marble, cinnamon, spice, incense, perfume, frankincense, wine, olive, fine flour, wheat, cattle, sheep, horses, chariots, slaves, human lives. Why does it list all this stuff? Because that's what's listed in Ezekiel 26 and 7 and 8, and in Jeremiah chapter 49, 50, and 51, which is all about the destruction of Babylon. It lists every one of these, and you can check me on that. I just didn't have room to put it. The fruit you long for has left you, and all things that were luxurious have passed away from you, and will no longer find them. The merchants of these things who become rich from her will stand at a distance because of the fear of her torment, weeping and mourning. So there are two kingdoms inside the bride, Israel and Edom. The king of Tzor, Hasatan, goes up only when Israel comes down. Do you hear me? Yeah. The king of Hasatan only goes up, not when Christians pray. Hasatan doesn't come down from Christians praying. Hasatan comes down from Judaism going up. Do you hear what I'm saying? This is the pattern God set from day one. It has never changed. That Judaism being exalted is what brings Hasatan down. That's spiritual warfare. You doing a bunch of Jewish stuff is spiritual warfare. Doing it every day is good spiritual warfare. Doing it intermittently is intermittent spiritual warfare. Us changing intermittently is intermittent spiritual warfare. Us changing daily, that's good spiritual warfare. The more Judaism changes us, the more we can do spiritual warfare. And we are doing spiritual warfare when we're changing. That's what it is, which I will show you. I'm not just going to tell you this, I'm going to show it to you. That when we change, when we do Jewish stuff and it changes us, that is spiritual warfare. I don't care what's been taught in the church about bringing down exalted high places in heaven, the high spiritual forces of darkness. The only thing that raises up Hasatan is when Judaism comes down, period. Not when people are mean to each other. That doesn't do it. The only thing that raises up Hasatan is when Judaism diminishes. Look at this. These both are from, you've probably heard me say these before. These are from great, reliable sources. One is the Encyclopedia of Jewish Symbols, and one is the Encyclopedia of Jewish Religion. These are great resources. This is what the Encyclopedia of Jewish Symbols, pictures. It's an encyclopedia of pictures, done by two women, Ellen Frankel and Betsy Platkin-Tuch. Great book. And by the way, I found this, I was looking for something else, and I just stumbled across this statement. Edom, the nation supposedly descended from Esav, was also a symbol for Israel's eternal enemy. Eternal enemy. Edom participated in the destruction of the first temple with Babylon, and their legendary descendants, the Romans, Edom's legendary descendants, the Romans. Where did that come from?
Contradictory terms.
Edom's descendants, the Romans. Now, it's not talking about their children. It's talking about spiritual descendants, which I'll show you. Destroyed the second temple. Herod, who was an Edomite and a Roman, the despised agent of Rome, was an Edomite. He really was an Edomite, for real. When Rome embraced Christianity, what? When Rome embraced Christianity, I say this to Christians all the time and they go, no, not really. When Rome embraced Christianity, and when I say this to Messianic Jews, they really get mad. No. Yeah. Rome embraced Christianity. Edom became a symbol. Their descendants are Christian Rome. And then for Christianity in general. In other words, if you're reading in the Talmud or you're reading in the Mishnah and it talks about Edom, it's talking about Christianity or Christian Europe. They won't say Christianity because there's no such word. That would be Messiahianity. That doesn't even make sense. So they just say Edom. Now, this is really, really important. And I hate teaching this because people hate it. But I love teaching it because it's the truth. Christianity is Rome in all of its forms. In all of Christianity, Messianic Jewish, Hebrew roots forms. It is Rome in some form or another. It is Edom. So you have Edom and you have Jacob, and they are mixing it up in the womb. And this has never stopped. Judaism has been fighting with Rome, and Rome's been fighting with Judaism for 4,000 years. It has never stopped. The name Esav, or Edom, is used as an eponym for Rome. They just say Edom. They don't even say Rome. And in medieval Hebrew literature, for any anti-Jewish regime, Christianity in particular. That's just facts. That's historical fact. That all of our fathers, the sages, the Tanaim, the Amoraim of Judaism, they all saw that, quote, Christianity is Rome. It is Edom. It is just, if you just strip it down to the bare bones, it is Edom. So there's two kingdoms inside the bride, Israel and Edom. So we have the king of Tzor being Hasatan. God called him Hasatan, yeah? And described him as Hasatan. And he goes up only because Israel comes down. Now God, in the book of Obadiah, prophesies against Edom. The whole book of Obadiah is nothing but against Edom. There's nothing else in it. There's only one chapter, but the whole thing is all against Edom. The vision of Obadiah concerning Edom. A messenger has been sent among the Gentiles saying, get up, let's go against her for battle, against Edom for battle. Behold, I will make you small among the Gentiles. You are greatly despised. The arrogance of your heart. You are so arrogant. You're so lifted up. You need attention all the time. It's all got to be you, 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 you. I hate you, God says. It's deceived you, the one who lives in the clefts of the rock, the height of his dwelling place, who says in his heart, who's going to bring me down to earth? Now, the mounts of Edom, Teman, the mountain of Edom, that was like the capital of Edom. It was a pretty high mountain, kind of like Franklin Mountain, not quite that high. And they'd built on top of it. And they were like, who's going to come up here? Sound familiar? Just like Tzor. Just like Tzor. So they're really the same picture. They're like, you can't get near me. You ain't going to get near me. Saying to God and to the Jews, you can't reach me. I'm way above you. And so God says, I hate you. And you say, who's going to bring me down to earth? Even though you make your place high like the eagle, even though you set your nest among the stars, I'm going to bring you down even from way up there. So why do you think Hasatan fell? Same picture. He's up there in the mountain of God with the stones of fire, and God throws him down to earth and burns him up. Malachi 1 says, I have loved you, Yaakov, says the Lord. But you, the Jewish people, say, how have you loved us? How have you loved us? Look what we've been through. Look how the world treats us. You've loved us? I'll tell you how I've loved you. Jews. Wasn't Esau Jacob's brother? But I've loved Jacob, but I have hated Esau. I've hated Edom. God, listen to me. I know this is hard. I know this is like crazy. If you just step back away from it and listen to it with no context, it sounds crazy. God hates Hellenism. And therefore, I hate to say it, God hates Christianity. But he created it on purpose. That's right. That's right. But he didn't create it as a good thing. He created it just the same way he created Edom, so they can fight. He didn't create it so the whole world can go, oh, that is so magnificent, let's do that. He created it so the Jewish people would have to fight it to establish the kingdom. You got to have a contrast, right?
What's the name Obadiah mean?
It means servant of God. Ovad Yah. Oved, servant, Yah. Eved. So he says, I've hated Esau, and I've made his mountains a desolation and given his inheritance to the jackals of the wilderness. That is what... Now, again, when I say Christianity, I don't mean born-again believers. I just mean the culture that born-again believers have been lied to and given and made to swallow and had forced on them. That's what God hates. And it's hard. It's hard to look at a believer who's Hellenized and try to get them to see that there's something else better. It's very difficult because Edom it's just, it's like menudo. Who doesn't want that? I hated menudo when I moved here. Hated it. Who doesn't want all the fine, delicious things that are served at Christmas? You know what I mean? It's hard. But God created it so that the Jewish people would have to fight with it and wrestle with it, even from the womb. So this is a long, long, long planned out process. There's no surprise here. So he says, I've destroyed it. Esav, I didn't do that to you, Jacob. That's how I've loved you. I love you. I hate them. I hate Edom. And then it's quoted by Paul, the God of the Christians, Paul. His words are higher than anybody's words to the believer. And he said the same thing. For though the twins weren't even born yet, they hadn't even done anything, good or bad, so that God's purpose, his choice can be seen. That it's not because of anything Jacob or Esau did. It's just God chose to do this. Before they were even born, it was said to her, the older will serve the younger. The older, who's the older? Who came out first? Esau. Esau will serve the Jews. And by that statement, he says, it's kind of hard to see it here. Hard to see it when you read the words in Romans. But what he says, and just like this, it's written, Jacob I've loved and Esau I hated. Why does it say the older will serve the younger? Because he hates this guy. And he's going to make Edom serve the Jews. How is that going to happen? The Jews have to make that happen by fighting. This isn't going to magically happen where all the Christians just wake up one morning and go, I need to do Judaism. That'll happen in the kingdom, but it ain't going to happen until the kingdom. But we have to fight. And I'm going to say it again. I'm going to show you. The way we fight is by doing spiritual warfare, which means doing Jewish stuff and letting it change us. And if it's not changing us, we're not doing spiritual warfare. We're not. That's all there is to it. So he links the older serving the younger with Jacob I've loved, Esau I hate. It's the only guy in the whole Bible that God says he hates. I said this last year. Esau, Edom, is the only person in the whole Bible that God says he hates. For God so loved the world, except Edom, except Esau, except Edomites, except Rome. So we have Esau is the king of Tyre, he's Hasatan, he's Babylon in the birth pangs, only in the birth pangs. There's two kingdoms inside the bride, Israel and Edom, and we have the king of Tzor, Hasatan goes up only because Israel comes down. So if Israel goes up, if Judaism goes up, that brings down Hasatan. This is so clear, isn't it? Isn't it clear? One goes up, the other comes down. One goes up, the other comes down. It's that simple. But how do you get that to happen? Raise up Judaism, raise up Israel, raise up Jacob. Okay, so this is what it says in the Talmud. I really like this passage. Oh, I didn't put where it's from. This is from the Talmud in Avodah Zarah 2b. Avodah Zarah means false worship, like idolatry. Yeah. Avodah Zarah 2b. It says, in the judgment, immediately the Roman Empire enters first before God. They come in first. The Gemara says, what's the reason that the Roman Empire goes in first? It's because the Roman Empire is the most important of all the nations. It's the most important. From where do we derive that it's the most important? Well, isn't it written in Daniel with regard to the fourth empire that will rule over the whole world, and it shall devour the earth and shall tread it down and break it in pieces? Jingle bells, jingle bells. Everything about Christmas, everything about Easter and Christmas, especially Christmas, is all very frilly and fun and delicious and silent night. And yet, it tramps on the earth and beats everybody down and puts everybody into submission and turns the world to dust with these beautiful, catchy little songs and foods and holiday.
Even Santa is like a picture of Satan.
Yeah, Santa's a picture of Satan, but he's a jolly old fellow, isn't he? He's so sweet. It's all, what they're trying to show us is that it's all a lie. Everything's a lie. Why would Rome be the one to go in before God in the judgment first? Because they're the most important. Why are they the most important? They destroyed the whole earth. Nobody else did. It's that simple. Rabbi Yochanan says, this empire that will devour the whole earth is the wicked Roman Empire, whose name spread throughout the world. Rome goes up, Jews go down. Jews go up, Rome will come down. Jews go up, Rome will come down. Judaism will go up, Rome will come down. Hosea chapter 12 says, in the womb, so now we're going to talk about spiritual warfare. In Hosea 12 it says, in the womb he, Jacob, took his brother by the heel. In other words, he came up from behind. That's what ekev means. It doesn't just mean a heel. It means like from behind, to come up from behind, sneaky, to come up sneaky from behind and get him. He gonna get got. So in the womb, he took his brother by the heel, and in his mature strength, he fought even with God. That's spiritual warfare. When he fought with God, what happened to him? He changed. He changed. He changed from Jacob to Israel. He changed from, heel catcher, a sneaky jerk who comes up from behind, into Israel, the one who contends with God. Or it could be Yashar El, upright of God. Or it could be Sar El, prince of God. Could be any of those. But they're all good. He changed. And this is spiritual warfare. Listen, I'm going to say it again. If you're not changing from doing Judaism, you're not doing spiritual warfare. You're not. You're not doing it right? Something's wrong. You're not doing it right. It's supposed to change us. It's supposed to be hard inside. Not hard to do, hard inside. Because it confronts us with our junk, and it changes us. That's what happened to Jacob, turned into Israel. But before that, he literally fought with Edom. Even in the womb, he was fighting Hellenism. He was fighting Rome, even from the womb. Think about that. Before Rome was even a thought to God. 1,000 years before Rome existed. Right around 1,000 years. 1,000 years before 1,500 years before Hellenism was even a thought. He was already fighting Rome. And he gave us the pattern of what we're supposed to do. Do Judaism. Stop being lazy and do it. That's spiritual warfare. That's how it works. Ephesians chapter 6. Now I'm going to hopefully make this passage make sense to you, because you've heard it a million times. I bet you never even thought about what it said. So we're going to pick it apart. I'll show you what he's talking about. Be strong in the Lord and in the strength of his might. Put on. Now what it says is, put on the whole armor of God, right? The armor of God does not say that. I went and checked the Greek because I was like, There's no armor in the Bible, is there? Except for Goliath and Saul had some armor. So I'm like, wait a minute, is that a Jewish thing? It can't. I bet it doesn't say whole armor of God. Surely doesn't. It says panoplia, which means every weapon. That's what it says. Every weapon. Offensive weapon, not defensive weapon. Offensive weapon. Now you got to have defensive weapon also, but you got to have offensive weapon. It doesn't say Jacob turned gently in the womb and then saw his brother who was behind him and then grabbed him by the heel. It says he ran up and grabbed his heel as a newborn, as not even born yet. He did this. So it says panoplia, every weapon of God, so that you will be able to stand firm against the schemes of the devil. For our struggle. Whose struggle? Israel. And Shaul's talking to Jews and Gentiles who knew Judaism, who did Judaism, and studied Judaism as pictures. And he says, our struggle, Israel's struggle, is against world forces of this darkness. What were the world forces of this darkness at that time, which is said in the book of Daniel? Rome. Correct. That's the world force of this darkness at that time, was Rome. And it still is. Nothing has changed. Nothing's changed. So he says, world forces of this darkness, that's Rome, against the spiritual forces of wickedness in the heavens. He's quoting Daniel. It talks about the devils of Greece and the devils of Rome that were coming. Therefore, take up every weapon of God. He uses the same word, panoplia, so that you can resist on the evil day. So stand firm, having put on the sash of truth. Now, I have a picture of the high priest over here, but I got the wrong picture, sort of. Do you know who the greatest warriors were in Israel? If you read the list of the greatest warriors, like from David, do you know who the greatest warriors were? Maccabees? Nope. This is way before the Maccabees. You know who they were? Every one of them. Priests. They were priests. They were all the priests were warriors. And they would start out with priestly garments, and then they would get a shield and a sword and a spear and put on a little bit of armor, a helmet. But that doesn't make them not priests. They're priests. So this is sort of the right picture. I wish I had a priest with some armor on. That would be cool. I couldn't find one. Therefore, take up every weapon so you can resist in the evil day, having put on the sash. Now, this is the avnet. That's that long, long sash, about 30 feet long, that the priests wore. It's that purpley-looking sash. That's the avnet of truth, of emet, of truth. He's talking about spiritual warfare. Santa Claus, reindeer, presents, December 25th, whenever it is. Everything, eating ham at the festival, which is a must, it's necessary. Every single thing about Christmas, there's not one shred of truth in it. This says to do spiritual warfare, you have to be armed in your gut with truth. Well, what's truth? Judaism. Having put on the body armor. Now this is a weird word. This is thoraka. What it says is the breastplate. That is not correct. Thoraka in Greek, well, I've got it in Hebrew too, because he's quoting Isaiah 59. And it says, the body armor of righteousness. He put on righteousness like body armor. This is the word kashirion. It's the same word of what Goliath and some of the other Philistines had, and Saul. It said that he had like some body armor, and David put it on. It was too heavy. He said, this doesn't fit me. I got to take this off. It's too much. And so he took it off, and he went out with stones to fight Goliath. So this is the word kashirion. Well, here in Greek, it's thoraka. But what did the priests wear on their thorax, on their breastpiece? A choshen. So the choshen is a picture of God's armor. Well, what's on the choshen?
Israel.
The 12 tribes. The 12 tribes, Israel. That's on God's heart. And that's what you go fight with. You go fight with the 12 tribes, with Judaism. And that protects you. That's a defensive protection armor of righteousness. And having put on your feet, say, I've got him barefoot. You know, I have him barefoot because the priest served in the temple barefoot. But look at what it says here. It doesn't say put sandals on your feet. It doesn't say that. It says put on your feet, how does it say it? Putting on your feet the preparation of the gospel of shalom. Now, what he's quoting is another verse in Isaiah that says, how beautiful on the mountain are the feet of those who preach the gospel. And in that same book, it says, get up, Zion, preacher of the gospel. Get up, O Zion, Jerusalem, preacher of the gospel, and scream to the world, here is your God. Where is your God? Jerusalem. So this is the priests, and they serve barefoot. It doesn't say put sandals on. Put on your feet the preparation of the gospel of shalom. In addition to all, taking up the shield, the magen of faith. Like I said, I wish I had him with a shield, with which you will be able to extinguish all the flaming arrows of the evil one. And take the helmet. Now I thought, no, there's no helmets in the Bible. Yeah, there is. In this verse, Isaiah 59, it says it. And there's some others. He put on righteousness like body armor, kashirion, and a helmet. It's the word kova. Kova in Hebrew. A kova of salvation, of Yeshua on his head. Well, what did the priest have on his head? Not a turban. There's two things on his head. Well, it's like a turban, but you don't know what it's called? No? A mitznefet, which is a head covering, but on top of that, what was on top of that? Do you know? The tzitz, the golden plate. What did it say? Anybody know? Kodesh la'Adonai, holiness to the Lord. Holiness to the Lord. That's our helmet. That's our helmet. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher kidshanu b'mitzvotav, who sets us apart, who makes us holy by the mitzvot. That's what sets us apart, the mitzvot, Judaism. And it's right there, right on your head, just like the tefillin, with which you will be able to extinguish all the flaming arrows of the evil one and take the helmet of salvation and the sword of the Spirit, which is the Torah, the Word of God. So, this ain't what Christians picture at all, is it?
They picture a Roman.
Right. The only way to fight Hellenism, and it's got to be done individually. You can't make somebody understand how horrible Hellenism is. We can only do this with us, with ourselves, as we do Judaism. And I'm going to say it again. If you're lazy, you're not fighting. If you find something else more interesting, you're not fighting. You're losing. But if you're doing Judaism and you add to it a little bit all the time, just a little bit, all the time, just a little, you're fighting. And then you will change, which is even more spiritual warfare. And this is how it's done. And I guarantee you, it's going to get worse. It is gonna get worse. I mean, for God's sake, now, when we were young, could you imagine seeing commercials on TV with homosexual and lesbian couples? And they do it like it's nothing. Everybody accepts everybody and everything. And this is going to get worse. It's going to get harder and harder and harder to tell people with any kind of conviction about Judaism. Not things you find, little nuggets you find that you think are so cool in the Torah. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about personal change. When you find something in the Torah, like I do all the time, that just confronts me and changes me, that's going to get harder and harder to convince people of. But if you don't do it, you're not doing spiritual warfare. Hasatan's going to go up higher and higher and higher. How are we going to get him to pull him? How are we going to pull him down? Going to have to increase Judaism. Does that make sense? Increase Jacob. Lessen Edom. Lessen Rome. Lessen Hellenism. Lessen, and I hate this word, Christianity. There's no other way to say it. Because that's what it is in our popular culture. It's the only reason I say it. So, to me, this is crystal clear. Crystal clear picture. Isaac got his bride. It's Israel. It's God taking Israel. It's Messiah taking a bride. And she gets pregnant. The bride gets pregnant with these two nations, with Hellenism and Judaism. And she feels the pain. And she goes to God and says, why? Why is it like this? And God says, because they're fighting. And one is going to get big, and then the other one is going to get big. And then one's going to get big, and the other one. And this is not going to stop. It's not going to stop. But I did this on purpose to show that I love Israel. I love the Jews. And I hate Esav. I hate Hellenism. I'm going to say one last thing. When I said that just now, I remembered this. I think it was in 1997. I was on God's Learning Channel in Midland. And one of our congregants had called up and they got me a gig teaching Judaism on God's Learning Channel, Christian's channel. And, I had just finished the book Pictures, and I was there to, hawk it and talk about it and sell it and tell about how great Pictures is. And I'm so excited, I'm so happy. And they're interviewing me, and at the end of the interview, I said, I thought everybody would get it. And I went just like this. I looked into, I'm such an idiot. I looked into the camera. I looked right at the camera, to be engaging and winsome. And I go, I love Messiah, and I hate Christ. And I thought, well, everybody's going to get it, because I've explained Pictures. I became, this is what they said they called, the guy who's in our congregation called up after this gig and said, would you like to have Rabbi Washer back on? And they said, he is persona non grata. That means they don't exist. But that's the message. That's the reality. It is the reality. And you're going to have to get your head wrapped around it. Not the people. It's hard to hate Edom, to hate Christ, without being nasty and ugly to the believers, who are our brothers and sisters, who are in the same bride that we are, Israel. But that's the work. That's what we got to do. Let's stand. For the Aleinu that says that we are not like everybody else. Aleinu l'shabeach la'adon ha'kol, l'ted gedula l'yotzer bereshit, shelo asanu k'goyei ha'aratzot, v'lo samanu k'mishpachot ha'adama, shelo sam chelkenu kahem, וגור עלינו ככל המונם. Let us adore the Lord of all, who in greatness created the world from of old, that he has not made us like the nations of the earth, not made us like the families of the land. He has not made our destiny like theirs, or cast our lot with all of them. V'ne'emar v'haya Adonai lemelech al kol haaretz bayom hahu yiyeh Adonai echad u'shemo echad. And it is said, the Lord shall be king over all the earth. In that day the Lord shall be one, and his name one. Va'anachnu korim u'mishtachavim u'modim lifnei melech malachei hamlachim hakadosh baruch hu. And we bend the knee and bow in worship and give thanks to the King of Kings, the Holy One. Blessed is he. We acknowledge before the King of Kings that there is none like him. There is nothing but him, as Torah says. Know that the Lord, he is God in the heavens above and on the earth beneath. Ein od milvado. There is nothing else but him. Shabbat shalom. Let's do Kiddush.